I'm David, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the first installment, Vintage Comic Show and Tell. I'll be your host, and I'd like to introduce our first guest. This is Danny, and he's a collector. What advisor would you like?
I'm actually your brother, so why don't we just
You
say,
are my, yeah.
So why don't we just say that? This is Danny, my brother.
If you haven't noticed, there's a resemblance, and he's been my comic book mentor my whole life. But when it comes to comics, what era do you feel you specialize in?
When I started collecting, I focused on the Silver Age, and mostly DC in the beginning. I've broadened my scope. I think I know DCs really well, and both, silver, bronze. But I've collected Marvel and non-Marvel and DC stuff, so I've been collecting it'll be 50 years in 2023.
50 years. Do you have books that you bought that long ago?
Yes. I've got a couple issues of Brave and the Bold that are like my original owner books. They're probably from like 1974 would be the earliest I go.
Okay. Danny's not a comic dealer. Danny is a collector. So I'm a comic dealer, and I'm also a collector. I've had books that I've probably had for 30 and 35 years, and I actually have books that I've had for longer. I've had some magazines for 45 years. I still have some Cream magazines from when I was 12, 13 years old. And I do have some comic books. I have a box of comic books that I haven't taken very good care of, but man, I've had them a long time. Danny's always been a different type of collector. And like I said, he's been my mentor the whole time, so we collected differently. But I took a long break from collecting, but as I came back, it was mostly because Danny and I really reconnected. We really ended up talking a lot, and at the time, Danny was really enthusiastically going after a part of his collection that he was really excited about. At the time, I think it was ECs that you were really pursuing.
Had always liked ECs a lot because I was buying EC reprints as a kid, and I'd owned a couple of low-grade ECs, but I think when you and I started talking about comics a lot, I had first bought like a couple of really nice ECs, and I was sharing them with you, and I think it kind of ignited a little spark in you too.
Right, and as we talk about it in different episodes, and I talk about some of the preferences I have, definitely ECs played a huge part in what makes me like comic books. And it goes all the way back to when I was a very small kid. But anyway, through our conversations, I ended up getting back into comics, and I was lucky enough to be at someone's house when there was a lot of people that collected from different places, all sitting down, and I got to participate in a show and tell where they were sitting down showing each other some books that I had not seen. And I don't know, I ended up sitting in the middle of that table, and there were some dandies going by.
Yeah.
Covers that I was not familiar with, artists I wasn't familiar with.
There was a lot of pre-code that day.
A lot of pre-code, and a lot of incredibly high-grade books, and I really was absolutely overwhelmed. I wanted to see the book 5 books ago as it was passing by, because I'd never seen that particular cover, and there was a lot of pre-code horror, and there was a lot of pre-code war books and romance, and it was just, they were amazing books. And we were aware, I was pretty aware of some golden age books back then, but not like this.
When you sit at these show and tells, collectors will invite you over to see their collection. You can get overwhelmed when you see a person's collection. Like, somebody's been collecting decades and they've been going after like a specific genre or whatever it is that they collect. And you start looking at one book, and then a second book. These are books that are like really nice, maybe things you've never seen before, maybe books that, have always, been out of reach for you. And it's like you're looking at thousands of books or hundreds of books in a day. And it's like, it's overwhelming. It's like you walk away with a sense of like, wow, but you can't really take in a person's collection just sitting in and just looking at long boxes or stacks of books and really appreciate the effort, the love, the passion that kind of went into collecting that.
Right, and especially as someone curates what they collect, you have people who want complete sets, and when they go after something, and Danny's a completist. Are you still?
Yeah, well, most of the things I collect for runs.
Right. You still have people that want to complete things, and when they start something, they know that they're on a journey to complete it. There are other people that might just want to get a part of a run, or all the covers with this artist, or this era of a book. I'm more like that.
Or their favorite character, the crossovers.
So that's what this show is about. This show is about the collector and how they pursue it, but also about very particular books that are overwhelming, and they certainly were to me. And I know there's a lot of Golden Age collectors out there, or Silver Age collectors, and we're really not going to get even close to the 90s. We're going to try to stay Bronze Age and back, and Bronze Age is a push, because I really don't want to do common things on this show.
When you had this idea for like just talking about comics and doing show and tell, one thing I like is, like, I watch a lot of YouTube videos about comics, just like probably most of us do, and the tendency is to talk about what's hot, what's cold, stuff that's related to the MCU, and you occasionally see books, that dealers and collectors are showing off that aren't either of those things, but I really like seeing, things that are like just not any of those things.
Sure.
And then the Bronze Age has a lot of great stuff. You said we will go to the Bronze Age. It's like you and I grew up in the Bronze Age.
Yeah, that's my era.
So like your favorite things are Bronze Age DC horrors.
Yes.
And those are fantastic books that are,
and monster books.
And those are awesome books that are today getting very popular, and it's getting very difficult to put high grade runs of those things together.
Right.
And yet they don't make anybody's top 10 list of hot or cold. So you don't tend to see those great Neil Adams,
unless they get some kind of MCU bump, like where at this time Werewolf by Night is getting an MCU bump. So that series really was in dollar boxes 2 years ago.
True, but like in the DC horror books, there's so much more than just House of Secrets 92.
Yes, that is a great cover, but there are some other incredible covers that fly under the radar that you can find a low grade copy of on eBay for $5. Try to get a 9.6.
Right.
I just paid $1,700 for a 9.6 of a copy most people don't even identify with. And these things are expensive, and that's not our focus, but the fact is that I know people that chase after books that you would not believe how much these books cost, and it's almost a subculture of comics that people that collect Golden Age, they understand that these books are really hard to acquire. They're very rare or scarce. And once you start getting, it's not just the superheroes. If you're going out, if you're a Green Lantern collector, or if you're an early DC collector, those things that, Flash collector, whatever that is, those things have been known a long time. But when I left the hobby, people were really focused on the early Silver Age. So it was, Showcase 4. Those were the things that were still getting a lot of heat. And the focus, when I came back, I noticed the focus had shifted away from that.
Yeah, well, definitely Marvel is the majority of people's interest, now as it relates to like Silver Age, like anything that's a Marvel key. And it used to be like Spider-Man 1, AF-15, Daredevil 1, whatever. But now it's like first appearance of Hawkeye, first appearance of Black Widow. So like the second tier and third tier books are actually becoming very sought after, very expensive because of their tie-in to movies and TV and such. But like there are so many great books that are never going to make somebody's top 10 hot list.
Right. There was just a record for L.B. Cole's early horror. What issue was that just sold on Comic Link, for instance?
Oh, I think you're talking about Mask. Mask 1 and 2's
Mask 2 just went for...
L.B. Cole, it's just like there is so much more to pre-code horror than there is EC, right? So like there's so many pre-code horror books out there, and I'm not a pre-code horror collector, so I'm sure you'll have other guests that you can talk to who collect that stuff, but like stuff is very popular, and while it's gone in and out of vogue, I don't know if it'll ever go out of vogue anymore, because it's really those covers that are driving it, and those covers are fantastic and they're scarce. In high grade, some of those books may not even exist above a 9.4.
We're really going to focus on things that may not be the typical Marvels that you're seeing in these top 10 lists over the last couple of years. And it really is to broaden the horizons of there are other collectible books that may be a little harder to find. As a matter of fact, I've never found a collector that likes everything to be mainstream.